Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
What's happening? Thursday, June 11th, we are slowly encroaching on that wonderful time of year called the football season. Even better, like draft season. That's what I care about more. August. That moves closer and closer by the day. Month and a half until we get to draft month. And then, usually at the end of August is when our home league drafts, which is what you wait all year for, right? Am I right?
Yes, you are right.
My name is Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon with me as always. We're going to try to keep it condensed today.
I'm going to attempt to.
We have running back sleepers. We're going to start off with a little information at the beginning of the episode. It's not even like a quick question. It's more like a tip or a statement.
Okay.
I guess. But anyway, you'll find out. Before we jump into the quick question or icebreaker or whatever you want to call it, check out our website, thefantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter at the FFChamps, on Instagram at the Fantasy Champions. You can like us at facebook.com/the Fantasy Champions. Subscribe wherever you're listening right now. If you're on YouTube, be sure to comment and click the bell for notifications and then leave a review. And we have a quick announcement before we start the official content of the show. Pre-orders started on June 1st for the draft guide at $25. The launch date is July 1st. I started really digging in and crunching on the construction of this draft guide, and you're going to be stunned.
I can't wait.
You got full rankings, breakouts, busts, player draft values, player breakdowns, all kinds of stuff. The whole team is involved. I'll tell you, 5-6 writers and us 2 idiots equal a draft guide that you can use to win your championship.
No, it's definitely going to be worth it.
In July, the price will go up. Be sure to pre-order. If you pre-order between now and that date, you will be entered in for a chance to be a part of our listener league. You can look at it as a way to support the show, help us make improvements, and grow the fam. So tell your friends. Make sure you get this word out there and buy the draft guide right now. Just stop and buy the draft guide. Pause us, buy the draft guide, then come back and listen to this episode. You ready for the icebreaker?
Yes, let's do it.
So give me your favorite draft tip for this season.
So it's kind of similar to my favorite draft tip every season, but it's don't draft the quarterback or tight end in the first 2 rounds. Redraft.
Said it before. I'll say it again.
Unless you're in like a 16-team league where the second round is like players like in the ADP in the 40s. But typically, if you're just in like a 10-team league, you don't want to draft a quarterback in the first 2 rounds because typically, always the quarterback who finished number 1 last year usually does not repeat.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that Lamar Jackson's not going to repeat, but his chances of doing it are very slim, as history shows. Tight end, same thing. You're just not going to get the value of drafting a tight end, even if it's Travis Kelce.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to get probably the same amount of fantasy points as a wide receiver late in the 3rd round or early 4th round or mid 3rd round. So like the value of taking a tight end, it's going to give you an advantage over other teams' tight ends. Sure. But you can get Darren Waller, Mark Andrews. Last year we looked at Austin Hooper.
There was
Hunter Henry too. I picked up off the waiver wire in a few of my leagues last year. So you can get a lot of tight ends late. You can get a lot of good quarterbacks late. It's hard to get running backs and receivers late. So at least like top tier ones. So you're going to want to do that in your first 2 rounds. But that's my favorite tip.
I'm going to say specifically for this season, I'll give a specific to this season draft tip. Normally what I do when I draft is it really depends. I guess it still kind of depends on the circumstances. But when I usually draft, I don't really set a lot of people go into their first 3 rounds and they say, oh my God, I'm going to draft I'm going to draft a running back in the first 3 rounds, and then I'm going to draft 2 wide receivers, and they like try to plan it out strategically like that. Yeah. And then they get frustrated when that doesn't end up happening because that's not how fantasy drafts work. You have to be flexible. But I usually go into drafts with a little bit of a plan, not solid, it's fluid, and I usually end up with a running back and a wide receiver after the first 2 rounds just as a generic situation. This year is a year where you might actually be able to justify going 2 running back in the first couple rounds. Do not listen to those people who are saying, 2 wide receivers the best, join the party. This is the wrong year for that because you're wasting. We're doing running back sleepers today, and I'll tell you, it was hard. The wide receiver show, super easy to find sleepers. Running back show, so hard to find sleepers.
There's so many great receivers in the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th round. Running backs, I don't think it's going to be that easy. And there's some great running backs early, like 2nd round, 3rd round. You can still get some, even 4th round. You can get some really good running backs. But like you said, it's hard to find some really good running backs past like the 7th round. You're
going to have to invest early draft capital to get your running backs, and you're okay. Yeah. Don't worry about not having a wide receiver in the first 2 rounds. And like I said, it's fantasy football. So it's still flexible. It's still fluid. Like you don't know what's going to happen over the course of your draft. So if you end up drafting, a wide receiver in the 2nd round and a running back in the 1st, and that's how your draft works out, then it doesn't really matter to me. Ultimately, I think you can get wide receiver 1s after round 3 this year. And that it sounds crazy, but I think it's true. And I think there's a lot of guys that are being overhyped. But there's also a lot of guys that are being completely justifiably hyped, and they're in the 4th, 5th round, and you might be able to snag them. And because of the huge amount of depth at the wide receiver position this year, a lot of those guys that you would think would be 2nd, 3rd round picks this year because of how well they played last year are ending up in the 4th, 5th round just because of the depth at the wide receiver position. There's so many guys. So it's like just... be patient with the wide receiver position. There's no need to freak out if you don't get a guy in the first couple of rounds and you end up with 2 big-time running backs. You're probably safer doing that. But anyway, let's move into the running back sleepers portion of this episode. You came here for this, the running back sleepers. It's probably on the YouTube thumbnail. It was probably in the name on your podcasting platform. You probably saw it and were like, wow, that seems like a great show to listen to. And now you're here listening to me ramble about why you're listening to the show. But this is why you're here. So let's talk about some running back sleepers.
Yeah, let's do it.
First on our list is a one Darius Geis with an ADP of 77. And I'll tell you, we have talked about Darius Geis a couple of times in this program. Last year I drafted him. I believe it was in the 6th round. Maybe the 7th.
Yeah, I think it was 6th.
I can't remember. But, so Darius Geis, I drafted him expecting him to finally come in and finally play a football game. He played 1 and hurt himself and then missed like 10 weeks and came back and played again. And then what did he do? It was tore something, or I can't remember how he got hurt. But anyway, he got hurt again.
Yeah, he got hurt, yeah.
He's kind of towing the line between being a very, very good running back in the NFL to, if he gets hurt again, he's just going to be cut and end up a career backup. Like, that's how close this is right now. Yeah. But he's still 23 years old. Week 13, he had I think it was 10 carries, which is not a lot, and 2 receptions on 3 targets, but he totaled 27 fantasy points. The thing I notice about this guy is he's extremely explosive.
Oh yeah.
And he has the ability to, like, there's guys like in the NFL, David Montgomery. I don't see that guy having more than 3 60-yard runs in his career, where, Darius Geis get a 5 60-yard runs in one season. That's how explosive he is a runner. He had 5 yards per carry last year, 6.6 yards per touch. He had a breakaway run rate of 7%, but it's not ranked because he didn't play enough last year. But his catch rate is 70%. He's a good pass catching back. He's a good running back. So obviously, to me, I feel like the opportunity needs to be there. This team picked up a guy named Antonio Gibson, who I like as well. But I feel like
he's more of a Chris Thompson replacement.
He's more of a Chris Thompson replacement or a guy who's going to play wide receiver. So for me, when I look at Geis, I see him as Peterson's 100 years old. There's no one else at the running back position. And Darius Geis is a 23-year-old running back that they drafted to put into this position. So, I mean, if he finally plays a full season, he's going to explode onto the scene.
Yeah, he's young. I mean, he's 22 right now. He turns 23 this month. Right. So he's still very, very young. And like you said, Peterson's 100 years old. And I like Gibson, but he is kind of the Chris Thompson replacement. He's going to be a guy who catches some balls, but he's not really going to get many carries. I mean, it's reasonable to think that if Geis stays healthy, he's going to get 200 plus carries and still be involved in the passing game enough where he can make an impact. And if you're getting him, where is he going? 8th round?
Yep. So pick 77, I believe.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you can get him there, I think, and with the opportunity that he could get, and if that offense just improves at all, like if Dwayne Haskins takes a small jump and Ron Rivera comes in and it kind of helps that team out, and if they just take a small jump on offense and Darius Geis is healthy, he's going to be, I mean, he's going to be really, really solid. So
no, it's true.
He's somebody who you should definitely target in that round.
The other thing is too, you know me, if you listen to the podcast on a regular, I love my fantasy points per opportunity.
Yep.
And his fantasy point per opportunity for running backs between 0.8 and 1 is very good. And he has a 1.1 fantasy point per opportunity. So that's up there with the Christian McCaffreys of the world being ridiculous when it comes to fantasy points per opportunity. But for him, if he gets the work, obviously I think that efficiency goes down a little bit because of that 27-point game. But I think if you're talking about what Darius Geis can do, if he does touch the ball next year, a total of, 200 times, I think he has a mid to high end RB2 season. And getting that type of player, especially right now, we talked about earlier in the show, how it's going to be difficult to get valuable running backs late. And to be able to get a guy like Darius Geis in the 8th round to sit on your bench and potentially have an explosive season that surprised you, that's way more than enough value. I mean, I don't think he should be drafted any higher than this pick. That's what we were talking about before the show. A lot of these guys should not be being drafted any higher. Like this, we're not saying you draft him higher. We're saying draft him where he's at, but understand that a lot of people are kind of just forgetting about what Darius Geis is as a talent and not taking him. If
you're sitting there in that round, I think Darius Geis is just the choice to go with.
Yeah.
It's partly because there's not a lot of great running backs like we were talking about past like the 5th round. So if you see a guy who could potentially be drafted in the top 5 rounds next year, in the 7th round, somebody who could have a really good season, you're going to want to hop on that. Especially at the running back position.
The second guy on our list, Raheem Mostert, a little bit higher. He kind of borders the line on sleeper just because I don't think he may not be like a complete sleeper. He kind of borders that, 5th, 6th, 7th round. So it just depends on really where he goes. You still have Tevin Coleman in San Francisco, but the big reason why, and I've talked about Raheem Mostert multiple times this offseason, the reason why I really like him, hold on a second, fantasy football championship ADP on Player Profiler, you see that. It is 47.79. That's usually pretty accurate. So right now he's a 5th round pick. According to that, I don't know if that changes for normal people who aren't gambling $1 million to play fantasy. But regardless, through the back half of the season, I think through weeks 13 through 17, I'll pull it up, 13 through 17, I believe he was an RB1. Yes, he was RB9 overall. He had 87 fantasy points through those 5 games. He was explosive. I picked him up off the waiver wire. Didn't freaking start him because, why not? But he has the capability to be a really good running back when given the opportunity. The hardest part was that you had Breda, you had Tevin Coleman, Jerick McKinnon, who obviously got hurt, but McKinnon's completely, gone now, right? Matt Breida has been traded; he's gone as well. And the only thing you got left is Tevin Coleman, who has had a little bit of trouble staying on the field the last couple years in terms of just staying on the field consistently. So I mean, Mostert comes into this season in I think he kind of might be a little bit too high on the ADP end if he ends up in the 5th round.
If he ends up in the 5th round, I don't think he's going to be a sleeper. But where he is right now on
right.
I think I did a mock draft
on June 11th. This is where he is. He's a sleeper.
Yeah, I think I got him in the 7th round.
Yeah.
So in the 7th round, he's an absolute steal because the 49ers are going to run the ball a ridiculous amount. Like you said, Tevin Coleman has injury history. Mm-hmm. Matt Breida is no longer there. So
yeah,
it's reasonable to assume that Mostert might get around 200 carries. And again, if you're drafting this late, like the 7th round, and you have the opportunity to draft somebody who's going to do that and be efficient as well, because I think Mostert's going to be efficient, you're going to want to hop on that train. Yeah. The 49ers have said they're going to continue to run the ball hard this year. So,
yeah, I mean, I think, obviously we know how efficient that offense is when it comes to running the football. Yeah. And I think that's probably the best part about Mostert. And when you start clearing out, attempts and opportunities for a guy, it's going to look good. He is 28 years old and he is an undrafted guy. So it is a little more concerning because he is on the older side. Like he could just completely collapse next year and go away forever. But
he is, but he doesn't. He's a young 28 because he doesn't have a lot of work in his career. Yeah, so there's not a lot of mileage on his legs.
Yeah. But I mean, when you look at from week 12 on, it was 13, 23, 24, 12, 11, 20 fantasy points respectively. So, I mean, he gets the passing game work, he gets the rushing game work. It's just a matter of whether or not he ends up, getting the opportunity next year. I wanted to take a look at his fantasy point per opportunity. It's 1.05. So, I mean, he's an efficient running back. And it's like if you pair efficiency with opportunities, he could have a really great season. Last year, he averaged about 9 carries a game through 15. So I'm thinking you got to get him up to like 13, 14 carries and like maybe 2-3 targets a game in order to get him into a position where he can be super efficient. But I would not be surprised if he ends up being a mid-range RB2 and a guy that you could slide into your flex, when you need a good matchup play. And so getting that in the 8th, 9th round with the possibility, 7th, 8th, or 9th round, with the possibility of him breaking out and being, a very good running back next year, it's great. But if the hype continues on Mostert, I'm not going to be buying that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Let's talk about Ronald Jones, ADP 96. Now, you pushed for Rojo to be on this list. Tell me why.
I did.
Tell me why you got Rojo on this list.
Oh, gosh. Now I might have to just take him off just because you said that. But, no, so for me, a lot of people have Keyshawn Vaughn ahead of him. Most people have Keyshawn Vaughn ahead of him.
Yeah. His ADP, Keyshawn Vaughn, is a little bit behind Rojo. Keyshawn Vaughn is 104, so he's like 8 picks behind him. But I could see that completely changing.
Yeah. I mean, in a lot of like sleepers mock drafts that I've done, Rojo has been the second Buccaneer running back to come off the board. But the general manager has talked highly of Rojo this year. Bruce Arians has talked highly of him. I want to see if I can get the direct quote, but the GM said, "We have a lot of faith in Ronald Jones. We have faith. Okay. We have more faith in him than we ever have. Like right now, he's 22. He has the easiest schedule among running backs, according to Fantasy Pros for 2020.
Yeah,
this season. And I don't think Keyshawn Vaughn is going to be taking the majority of the carries. I think if anything, they'll split. But I actually think Ronald Jones will probably get the majority of the carries. And I think the Buccaneers, they're going to throw the ball a lot, obviously.
Yeah.
But with Brady at quarterback, he's going to read the defense very well, and he's going to opt out to run for a lot of run plays. And I think goal line too. I think there's going to be a lot of goal line runs.
Yeah, that's a good point.
which will help Ronald Jones more than Keyshawn Vaughn. I actually really like Ronald Jones this year. And you know how Brady likes to throw to running backs? I think that's going to more help Keyshawn Vaughn, but I don't think Ronald Jones is going to have not a lot of targets either, because Ronald Jones was involved in the passing game last year for the Buccaneers.
The biggest issue I see with Ronald Jones is I had him on my team last year. He's been given so much opportunity in the past. And last year he had 4.2 yards a carry, which is a lot better than anything that they had before. But he had 172 carries, 41 targets, a total of 202 touches on the season. And I believe he was only a low-end RB2 at season's end. I'm going to pull that up really fast just to see. He might have been a little bit lower than that. He was a... Oh, my God. Where are you, my dude? Yeah, I can't
Ronald Jones statistics.
Oh, 26th. So he had 150 fantasy points. He was 26th overall, and he played all 16. So, you know, it lends it to say that he had opportunity last year, and he wasn't efficient enough to produce at a high level. He had 0.78 fantasy points per opportunity. So that is on the low end of what you want to have for a running back. He's just not super efficient. So for him to have a really great RB2-like season, one of two things need to happen. Either he needs to see a spike in carries and target share. And so, like, he gets 200 carries and, like, 40 catches this year instead, which would total, instead of 202 or 203 touches, 240, 250 touches. If he gets in that ballpark, he ends up like a mid-range RB2 if you base just off his efficiency from this year. Now, if Tom Brady makes that offense more efficient, which to be honest with you, I don't even know if that's going to be, like, it'll probably be more efficient, but they scored a lot of points last year.
That is true.
They still were able to get it done offensively, even with Winston at quarterback. Is it weird
to say that I think the running game would be more efficient with Brady as quarterback versus Winston?
I mean, I wouldn't. I think you're not wrong there, only because, you know, Winston is kind of brain dead on the field for some reason a lot of the time. He's
not brain dead. He's not.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good quarterback. I just mean, like,
compared to Brady.
Yeah, I think when you talk about Brady and Winston going up to the line of scrimmage, right? Winston's just going to snap it and hand it off to the running back, and then the running back's going to get pummeled. Whereas Brady will sit up in front of the line of scrimmage, call out the mic, and he's actually going to break down the play. And I know that, like, watching the Patriots for years, we used to watch Tom Brady dissect the entire defense before I run up the middle. So it's like, you know, that kind of stuff does have an effect on the game. And so I think, yes, you can expect an efficiency bump. What I don't expect to happen, like I said, one of two things, either a efficiency bump or a increase in opportunities. But I think the efficiency bump is more worthy of that happening. My big thing is that I just don't see, especially when they had, what did they spend, a 4th round pick on Keyshawn Vaughn, or? Yeah,
it wasn't high. I think it was a late 3rd.
Yeah, see, so the draft capital for me for Keyshawn Vaughn is not, like, they spent more on Ronald Jones than they spent on Keyshawn Vaughn. And so just expect Keyshawn Vaughn to walk in and take all the work is just naive.
That's what I'm saying too. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that happens, if he, you know, beats him out in training camp, because it's going to be a competition. But I also wouldn't be surprised if Ronald Jones gets the majority of the work. So I think he's worth the pick in the 10th round. To me, like,
yeah, I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you on that. I think he's a great sleeper.
Yeah. And with the potential goal line work, with the potential of him because you said it'd be harder for him to get another 200 plus touches. I don't think it will. I think it's very possible for him to do that. I mean, how many carries did Peyton Barber get last year?
I don't know. Let me look it up. Do you really want to know what waste of time that guy was?
Well, so what I'm saying is, though, I think they're going to run the ball.
He had 154 carries.
So let's say Keyshawn Vaughn gets 154 carries.
Or let's say Keyshawn Vaughn gets 125, because that's more like it.
Okay, so then that means Ronald Jones is going to get whatever he got last year, probably.
Maybe, but they still got Derek Ogunbowale. Don't leave him out.
I'm kind of leaving him out.
Yeah, I know you are.
I'll give him 20 carries. That's still a lot of carries for Ronald Jones.
I think there's not what Peyton Barber left vacant if Keyshawn Vaughn had not been drafted by the Buccaneers and they just went with Ronald
then
Jones,
I'd be even higher on Ronald.
Oh yeah. You start sweating. I just don't know that he's going to increase from 200 plus touches. I think he's just going to stick there, and he might see a slight increase. And this is why I'm thinking, like, if I had to project him in the 10th round, this is great value, by the way. This is not like when I say he's an RB2, low end, maybe mid range RB2. In the 10th round, yes, please, I'll take it. But if he starts getting drafted in like the 7th round and he has for some reason he has like some kind of bump because of the video you saw online the other day of him catching footballs on out routes, and if that starts happening, then you're going to have a completely different conversation about what his value is. But in the 10th round, if he sticks there, it's worth it. He's not going to start week 1. If he ends up getting 15 to 20 touches a game, then you're going to see the opportunity to go there. But like I said, I think the efficiency only sees an increase to like maybe 0.85 fantasy points per opportunity, and even if that happens, that's more like he's going to need a lot of opportunity to bump himself up into that complete RB1 situation where he ends up being like an RB9, RB8, which I don't see happening. So I think it would be very hard for him to do that, but I think it's not hard for him at all to see an increase to be like RB16.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. And if you can get that in the 10th round at the running back position, that's phenomenal.
That's fair. J.K. Dobbins. So you put Rojo on this list. I wasn't liking it, and then I was like, you know what? Yeah, let's put Rojo on this list. And I said Dobbins, and you said convince me, and I was like, okay. So
convince me.
I just wanted to start off with a man named Mark Ingram, who is, I think we could both agree, has always been, for his entire freaking career, underrated. Very good running back. He's kind of gone the same way as Frank Gore. He's always been a low end RB1. Almost every year in his career, he's been a low end RB1. With the exception of years whether he was suspended or injured, he's always been a low end RB1. And that's assuming 12 team, by the way. He's 30 years old. He had a really good season last year, but he's one of those older players where, like, when you get old in the NFL, you can just drop like a rock. It's not a slow decline. Like, a lot of guys just completely collapse. And so you're talking about an age where Mark Ingram could get hurt, or Mark Ingram could just not be the same player, right? And if he's not as efficient, because you're going to see, for this entire Baltimore Ravens offense, you're going to see a regression of some sort. Like, they can't be as efficient as they were last year. So for me, I think when you talk about Mark Ingram, I don't know that he's going to get as much opportunity as he did last year. I'll still hit 200 plus reps, but I think he's an old man. And Dobbins is coming in as, what was he drafted in the
second round?
Yes, the second round. I'm sorry. I'm trying to type in the player profiler, and they expect you to put the periods after JK.
That's annoying.
Yeah. So anyway, he was picked in round 2, late in the second round. He was explosive at Ohio State, very good running back. If you watch his film, you'll obviously get sweaty. He kind of reminds me in a lot of ways to Alvin Kamara when you watch him on film. And I don't want to compare that situation because I've done it before, but Alvin Kamara came in after getting drafted in the 2nd or 3rd round the year he played and took over for Mark Ingram. And so I think Dobbins is going to come in, and he's going to get a lot more work than people expect. I don't really like Gus Edwards, never have, but he's still there. They just run it a lot. And so it's like, when I look at the Ravens, I could totally see Dobbins come out and get 150 rushes and maybe 40 catches in the passing game next year and encroach that, 180 to 200 touches. And I think he's going to be efficient. So if he's around 9 fantasy points per opportunity, he ends up being an RB2. And I think a lot of people are just fading him because Mark Ingram's there. You know what I mean? And it's like, in Dynasty, people are psyched. He's almost the RB1 in a lot of leagues, but you know what I mean? I think, or he's 101 off the board in a lot of Dynasty leagues. But in redraft this year, I think a lot of people are just looking at him going, he's just another rookie running back drafted in the 2nd round on a team that already has a starting running back. But it's like, the amount that team runs the football, it's worth taking a pick. And like, he's one of those guys, like you were just talking about, Rojo. I think J.K. Dobbins probably has a lot more opportunity to be an RB1 next year because he's young. He's still a rookie. He's got that second round talent behind him. We know what Ronald Jones kind of is at this point, but J.K. Dobbins is this fresh off the market. You know what I mean? Like running back that could blow up.
Yeah, no, I get your point. I think if Mark Ingram wasn't there, I'd be more on board. I'd be wicked on board.
Oh yeah.
I think Mark Ingram's still going to get his 200 touches.
I just think it's enough. There's still enough there for J.K. Dobbins to eat.
When you said Kamara and Ingram from like the Saints, it made me sweaty. I'm not gonna lie. Like, if he does that, I think it is possible.
I don't think he'll do that. I mean, Alvin Kamara, when he came in, I was looking at some of the numbers like last year. I think he was a mid-range RB1, but rookie year. But he was drafted in the third round of redraft leagues. So people were just down on Mark Ingram that year. So I don't think you see the same thing happen with Dobbins. I mean, there's an off chance that it does, but I'm just thinking like if they both get around 200 touches and they split evenly, Dobbins could most definitely end up being, a mid-range RB2 next year, which is, in the 11th, 12th round, that's what you're looking for.
If Dobbins can get 200 touches, then I'm all on board.
It's a matter of whether that happens, but is it worth taking a shot in the 12th, 11th, 12th round?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. See, I'm with you on that one. I convinced you.
You did.
All right, let's talk about Kareem Hunt, the final guy on this list, and then we'll conclude the show. Kareem Hunt's ADP is 79 right now. He's in the 8th round. Now, I wanted to tell you, Kareem Hunt. Now, I'm actually kind of like, I'm a full-on believer of Nick Chubb. Always have, always will be. But I was looking at the last 8 games of the season last year when Kareem Hunt came back, when the games he played. Do you want to hear some of these, some numbers here?
Sure.
Nick Chubb was the RB15 in fantasy football from that week on, 98 fantasy points. Kareem Hunt was the RB19 over that span with 82 fantasy points in a much worse offense.
Yep. They added some offensive line. They actually kind of almost rebuilt that offensive line.
Kareem's really good. He's just ridiculously good.
He's a very good running back. Kevin Stefanski's offense is very run heavy.
Right.
So if he gets just a little more carries than he did last year, and Hunt can still be good, and so can Chubb. Like they can both be very, very good. I still think Chubb is going to get 280 carries,
right? And
Hunt can still be efficient because Hunt is going to be involved in that passing game a lot,
right?
He's going to get like 5 catches a game. He's with around 7 to 8 carries. Yeah, and if he can do anything, because he's going to be very efficient, so if he can just get a touchdown or 2, he's going to be a very efficient player week in and week out. Yeah. And I mean, if Chubb ever gets hurt, Kareem Hunt is going to be Kareem Hunt from Kansas.
Oh, I think that is probably the biggest thing for, not that you're rooting for a Nick Chubb injury, because I love Nick Chubb and I don't want him to get hurt. But if that's the biggest appealing part about Kareem Hunt, is that his base floor, as you can see, is a low-end RB2, according to those numbers last year.
RB19.
Mid to low-end RB2. And so if those are the numbers that he is going to get inside that Stefanski offense, right, and he's going to stick in that conversation, then I would be more inclined to believe that if something did, you already got a good floor, and if something did happen to Nick Chubb, that Kareem Hunt would come in and just be what he was with the Kansas City Chiefs, be ridiculously good. I mean, I don't think he'll be that, but like I said, low-end RB1 is probably a good conversation to have with him if he's the full-time guy. So it's like, it's almost like he's a super handcuff. You know what I mean? Can we trademark that, super handcuff? But he's a guy who can come in, who's going to get you good base floor fantasy points on a week-to-week basis.
Player. If Chubb plays 16 games, he's still going to be
in a 12
a
team,
guy you can put in your lineup.
In a 12 team where you essentially can't build a super team, he's for sure a flex. So it's like you have him on your team and you get his floor, and then Nick Chubb gets hurt, then all of a sudden you have an RB1 sitting in your flex, and it's like I think there's no reason to. For me, I'm like, this is the one player on this list that I'm like, why is he in the 8th round right now? Like, why is he not in the 6th or 7th round? Like, Darius Geis is getting drafted ahead of him, and I'm like, I mean, I love Geis. I think he has more breakout potential than Kareem Hunt, but
Yeah.
like, what, you know, Kareem Hunt already broke out, but
he's the most sure thing I think on this list.
yeah.
Well, him and Mostert, I think.
Right.
But Hunt, yeah, absolutely. I don't know why he's going in the 8th round right now.
Like I'll snag him if he's in the 8th round in any of my leagues. I'll snag him up.
Yeah.
And if I'm wrong on it, I'm wrong on it. I don't care. I'll just do it. I think you should too.
I'll die on that hill. Yeah.
If you're drafting, you know what I mean, in a redraft league in the next couple months, Kareem Hunt should be one of the guys you target to be on your roster, because it's not like this is the one thing I'm learning about this year is that you always want the sexy players. You always want the exciting guys. And for me, it's like, I think the people that win you leagues are not necessarily the super exciting guys, but the guys who you take a chance on in the mid to late rounds that end up turning into the exciting guys during the season.
Yeah.
Or, you know what I mean? They get you base level. Like Julian Edelman was on my team all year last year, or half the year last year. And a lot of the weeks that I won were because Julian Edelman got me 12 points and a half PPR. You know?
Yep.
So it's like, it may not be a sexy pick with Kareem Hunt, but it for sure is a great investment.
PPR, he's going to get you 10 points every week. He's going to get you 10 to 12 points every single week. Yep.
So there you have it. RB sleepers, exciting stuff. You know what it is.
I love me some running backs.
I do too. I love running backs.
I know
so much.
you do. That you do especially.
Always.
Even more than me.
And my favorite running back does not need to be named because he's known. Ezekiel Elliott.
I was going to say Zeke or David Montgomery. Yeah.
Don't forget to check out our website at thefantasychampions.com. Be sure to go over to our website, buy the draft guide, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and we will talk to you Tuesday, Fantasy Champs. We're going to talk about tight ends. Gross. I know.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube, and follow us on Twitter at @TheFFChamps.